She stormed into her millionaire CEO's Christmas gala and showed up in a $500 million limousine with his secret twin he never knew existed. The ballroom fell silent. 400 of the most powerful people in the city stood frozen with champagne glasses suspended mid-air as my voice cut through the orchestra's dying notes. Can't what, Sebastian? Can't show up to your Christmas gala? Can't introduce our sons? Yes, sons, plural. To the guests you've been lying to for nearly 3 decades. Sebastian Mercer's face drained of color. The billionaire CEO who had built a $4.7 billion empire stood paralyzed on stage, his rehearsed speech forgotten, his carefully constructed world cracking at the seams. Vivienne. His voice came out strangled. That's not. You can't. They're dead. They've been dead for 27 years. The man standing beside me stepped forward. 6'2". Hazel eyes flecked with gold. A jawline that matched Sebastian's perfectly. A face that was currently being broadcast on 400 cell phone cameras. My name is Xavier Sterling. And I'm very much alive. He paused, letting the weight of his name settle over the gasping crowd. You sold me to the highest bidder 3 hours after I was born. You told my mother both her children died. You did this so you could marry a strategic wife without complications. From across the ballroom, I watched my other son. The one I'd raised. The one who was working security at his own father's Christmas gala without knowing it. Roman stood frozen, his hand still on his earpiece, staring at Xavier like he was looking into a mirror. Mom. Roman's voice cracked across the silence. What's going on? And in that moment, 27 years of secrets, of survival, of building something from nothing while the man who destroyed us built towers that scraped the sky. All of it collapsed into the truth I should have told years ago. What would you do if you discovered the father of your children sold one of your twins on the black market while you lay unconscious, then convinced you both babies died? What would you do if you spent 27 years mourning a child who was alive the entire time, growing up in a different world, becoming a billionaire in his own right while you scraped together rent money and worked double shifts? Have you ever trusted someone so completely that their betrayal didn't just break your heart? It rewrote your entire identity? Tonight, a $4.7 billion empire built on stolen children was crumbling. And the person destroying it wasn't a prosecutor or a journalist or a business rival. It was the son Sebastian Mercer never knew survived. But here's what nobody expected. Not even me. The twin he sold. He became richer than his father ever dreamed. Worth $12.8 billion. The world's youngest self-made tech billionaire. And now, both my sons were meeting for the first time inside their father's own ballroom. If you believe in justice catching up with people who think money makes them untouchable, subscribe right now and join me for the most satisfying confrontation I've ever had the honor of orchestrating. Because what happened in that ballroom? It changed everything. But to understand why it mattered, you need to know how it all began. My name is Vivienne Hartwell. And this is the story of how I lost everything, rebuilt from nothing, and watched the truth rise from the dead to destroy the man who tried to bury it. 27 years earlier. January. New York City. The laundromat on West 47th Street smelled like industrial detergent and desperation. I was 19 years old, aged out of foster care 8 months prior, and I had exactly $3.75 to my name. 3 loads of laundry required $2.25. Which meant I had exactly $1.50 for food until my next paycheck arrived in 4 days. I fed my last quarters into the machine in the corner. The one that always worked. Watched the drum begin to spin. Allowed myself 30 seconds of relief before I noticed the machine wasn't filling with water. No. No, no, no. I pressed every button. Pulled the dial. Pushed it back in. Nothing. Excuse me. A voice from behind me. Deep, warm, with an accent that suggested private schools and country clubs. That machine's been broken for 3 weeks. Owner's too cheap to fix it. I turned to find a man about my age leaning against the folding table. Dark hair that fell across his forehead. Hazel eyes with flecks of gold that caught the fluorescent light. Designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly rent, paired with a vintage t-shirt that looked deliberately distressed. Thanks for the warning that came 30 seconds too late. He smiled. The kind of smile that rearranges molecules. That makes you forget you just lost your last 50 cents to a broken machine. I'm Sebastian. Can I buy you a coffee to make up for the machine stealing your quarters? Every survival instinct I developed in 18 years of foster care screamed at me to say no. Rich boys didn't notice girls like me. Not unless they wanted something. I'd learned that lesson from foster fathers with wandering eyes and foster brothers with entitled hands. I'd learned it from the social workers who promised forever families that never materialized and the counselors who forgot your name 3 days after meeting you. But his eyes. Those hazel eyes flecked with gold. They looked at me like I was worth more than my circumstances suggested. Like I was a person, not a problem to be solved or a body to be used. I don't even know your last name. Does it matter? He tilted his head. I could tell you it's Sterling or Rockefeller or Kennedy and it wouldn't change whether the coffee tastes good. Probably not, I admitted. So. Coffee? And against every warning bell ringing in my head, I said yes. Because at 19, desperate for anyone to see value in me, a cup of coffee with a handsome stranger felt like enough of a gift to risk the disappointment. The coffee shop was 4 blocks away. Small, crowded, the kind of place that had mismatched furniture and baristas who remembered your name after 2 visits. Sebastian ordered us both lattes without asking what I wanted, then caught himself. Sorry. That was presumptuous. What would you actually like? The latte is fine. You sure? His eyes crinkled when he smiled. Because you have the look of someone who's about to tell me exactly what I did wrong. I laughed despite myself. Okay. I would have ordered an Americano. But the latte is genuinely fine. He flagged down the barista and changed my order. Then he sat across from me in a booth with ripped vinyl seats and asked questions no one had asked me in years. Where are you from? What do you do? What do you want to do? Foster care. I work part-time at a bookstore on Union Avenue. I'm studying interior design at the community college. Or I was. I had to drop out this semester. Couldn't afford the tuition and the rent at the same time. He didn't offer pity. Didn't say I'm sorry or that must have been hard. Instead, he leaned forward with genuine curiosity. What kind of interior design? Commercial? Residential? I want to design spaces that heal people. Hospitals, therapy centers, recovery facilities. Places where people go when they're broken. I think environments can help put people back together. The right colors, the right light, the right flow. It matters more than people realize. That's. Sebastian paused, something shifting in his expression. That's really specific. Most designers want to do luxury apartments or celebrity homes. Most designers grew up in houses that actually belonged to them. He was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly, like I'd passed some kind of test he hadn't realized he was administering. That was the first conversation. It should have been the last. A chance meeting, a cup of coffee, a stranger who would remain a stranger. But Sebastian found me at the bookstore 2 days later. He bought a cookbook he clearly had no intention of using, asked me when my break was, and waited 45 minutes reading in the travel section until I was free. You're back. Couldn't stop thinking about healing spaces. He held up the cookbook. Also, I'm a terrible cook and I thought maybe this would help. That cookbook won't help. It's advanced French cuisine. You need something that starts with how to boil water. He looked at the cover like he was seeing it for the first time. Well. I guess I'm coming back to exchange it. He came back the next day. And the day after that. And the day after that. Always during my shifts. Always with some excuse about a book he needed or a question he wanted to ask. But we both knew the truth. He was there for me. And despite every protective instinct telling me to push him away, I kept letting him in. Within a month, the coffee meetings had turned into dinners. Within 2 months, the dinners had turned into weekends. He took me to museums and talked about architecture for hours. He showed me buildings he loved, pointed out design elements I'd never noticed, asked my opinion on spaces I would have been afraid to even enter before meeting him. What do you think of the atrium? He asked once, in the lobby of a hotel so expensive the staff looked at my second-hand coat with barely concealed disdain. The light is wrong. Too harsh. It makes people feel exposed instead of welcomed. And the seating areas are positioned like afterthoughts. This space is designed to impress, not to comfort. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and typed something. What are you doing? Taking notes. I want to remember exactly what you said. Why? Because you see things other people miss. And that's rare. Nobody had ever told me that before. Nobody had ever treated my observations like they mattered. In foster care, my opinions were inconveniences. In my jobs, my thoughts were irrelevant. But Sebastian listened like every word I spoke was worth recording. I fell in love. Slowly at first, then all at once. The way you fall asleep, then suddenly you're dreaming. He rented us a studio apartment. A real one, in a building that didn't smell like mold or echo with the sounds of neighbors fighting through paper-thin walls. He called it ours, even though he paid for everything. He filled the refrigerator and installed soft lighting and bought sheets with a thread count I didn't know existed. I know I'm moving fast. He stood in the doorway while I explored the kitchen, opening cabinets that were actually clean. If it's too much, tell me. I can slow down. Sebastian. I turned to face him. Who are you? What do you mean? I mean, you dress like money, but you claim to be a struggling grad student. You know things about architecture that suggest serious education, but you never talk about your family or your past. You show up with books you don't read and cook meals from recipes you can't follow. And you see me. But I don't really see you. Not completely. His face changed then. Something flickered across it. Fear, maybe. Or the shadow of a secret he wasn't ready to reveal. I'm just a guy who met a girl in a laundromat and can't stop thinking about her. Does it have to be more complicated than that? It doesn't have to be. But I think it is. He crossed the room and took my hands. His palms were warm. Soft in a way that suggested he'd never done manual labor in his life. Vivienne. I promise you. Whatever you need to know about me, I'll tell you. But can we just be us for a little while longer? Before the real world crashes in. I should have pushed. Should have demanded answers. But he was looking at me with those hazel eyes, and his hands were trembling slightly against mine, and I wanted so badly to believe that love could be simple. That this beautiful thing we were building didn't have to be complicated by whatever secrets he was carrying. Okay. I squeezed his hands. But soon. Soon. He kissed my forehead. I promise. 3 months later, he took me to a cabin upstate. He called it his uncle's place. A weekend getaway, he said. Somewhere quiet where we could just be together without the city pressing in on us. The drive took 2 hours. We talked the whole way. About buildings we wanted to design. About places we wanted to travel. About a future that felt more real every day, even though I still didn't know his last name. When we pulled up to the cabin, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a cabin. It was a multi-million-dollar architectural masterpiece perched on a cliff overlooking a valley. All glass and steel and exposed wood beams. Solar panels on the roof. A swimming pool that steamed in the winter air. Gardens that probably required full-time staff to maintain. Sebastian. I didn't get out of the car. What is this? It's. He rubbed the back of his neck. My uncle's place. I told you. Your uncle lives in a $10 million glass house. It might be worth more than that, actually. He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Vivienne. I need to tell you something. We sat in his car for 2 hours. The engine running for heat. Steam rising from the hood. And he told me everything. His name wasn't just Sebastian. It was Sebastian Mercer. As in Mercer Dynamics. As in the pharmaceutical company whose logo I passed on buses every day. As in the family whose donations funded hospital wings and university buildings and charity galas that got covered in the society pages. He was the heir to a fortune so large he couldn't actually calculate it. The trust fund alone was worth over $100 million. He'd gone to prep schools and Ivy League universities. He'd traveled to countries I couldn't point to on a map. He'd lived a life so far removed from mine that we might as well have existed in different dimensions. I wanted you to see me. He stared at the steering wheel. Not my family's money. Not the name. Me. Sebastian. The guy who can't cook and loves architecture and fell in love with a girl in a laundromat who sees the world differently than anyone I've ever met. So you lied. I omitted. That's the same thing. Is it? His voice cracked. If I'd told you on day one who I was, would you have given me a chance? Would you have trusted anything I said? Or would you have assumed I was just another rich guy looking for entertainment? I stopped. Because he wasn't wrong. If he'd introduced himself as Sebastian Mercer, heir to billions, I would have run. I would have assumed he was slumming it, playing with the poor girl for amusement before returning to his real life. I don't know. Exactly. So I gave you a chance to know me. The real me. Without the money and the name and the expectations. And now. He finally looked at me. Now you know. And now I know that you're capable of sustained deception. That you can look me in the eyes every day for 3 months and hide something this fundamental about who you are. I was protecting what we had. You were protecting yourself. He flinched. Maybe. Probably. But Vivienne. I'm telling you now. I'm telling you everything. And I'm asking if what we have is strong enough to survive the truth. We argued for another hour. He said things about trust and fear and wanting to be loved for himself. I said things about respect and honesty and the fundamental impossibility of building a life on deception. Eventually, we went inside the glass house that wasn't a cabin, and we sat on opposite ends of a couch that cost more than my annual income, and we tried to figure out what came next. I forgave him. I shouldn't have. Looking back with 27 years of wisdom, I can see how that forgiveness set the pattern for everything that followed. He lied, he apologized, I accepted. He hid something, he revealed it when forced, I adjusted. Every time I chose to believe his justifications over my own instincts, I made it easier for the next lie to land. But at 19, desperate for love, convinced that what we had was rare and worth fighting for, I told myself that forgiveness was strength. That love meant accepting someone's flaws. That everyone deserved a second chance. I told myself his deception came from insecurity, not malice. I was wrong. 2 months later, I stood in the bathroom of the studio apartment he'd rented for us, holding a pregnancy test with shaking hands. 2 pink lines. Clear as architectural drawings. Unmistakable. I sank onto the edge of the bathtub, pressing my palm against my still flat stomach. 20 years old. No degree. No family. A part-time bookstore job and a boyfriend whose real name I'd only known for 8 weeks. And pregnant. Hello, little one. The words came out before I could stop them. I don't know how we're going to do this. But we're going to do this. The decision was instant. Fierce. Unshakable. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever obstacles the world would throw at us, I was keeping this baby. This tiny collection of cells that was half me and half the man I loved. This unexpected gift that had appeared in the middle of my chaos like a message from the universe. I told Sebastian 3 days later. We need to talk. I met him at the coffee shop where we'd had our first conversation. Neutral territory, even though I didn't consciously recognize that's what I was choosing. What's wrong? His face immediately shifted to concern. Did something happen? Are you okay? Something happened. I'm pregnant. The silence stretched between us. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. I watched shock give way to something I couldn't quite read. Then his face transformed into pure joy. We're having a baby. He grabbed my hands across the table. Vivienne. We're having a baby. We're having twins. I'd had the ultrasound confirmed that morning. 2 heartbeats. 2 tiny blurs on the screen that would become my children. Sebastian's eyes went wet. He pulled me around to his side of the booth and wrapped his arms around me so tightly I could barely breathe. Twins. We're having twins. This is amazing. This is terrifying and amazing and... He pulled back to look at my face. Are you happy? Is this what you want? I want these babies. I didn't hesitate. I'm scared, but I want them. Then we're doing this. He kissed me hard. We'll figure it out. I'll get us a bigger apartment. You can reduce your hours at the bookstore. My trust fund kicks in when I turn 25. That's only 3 years away. We can do this, Vivienne. We can build something real. For 2 weeks, I believed him. We looked at apartments in family-friendly neighborhoods. We made lists of baby names. He sketched designs for cribs that would convert into toddler beds. I researched prenatal vitamins and maternity leave policies and daycare costs. We talked about schools and parks and what kind of parents we wanted to be. It felt real. It felt possible. It felt like the life I'd always dreamed of but never thought I'd have. Then he came home from a meeting with his parents, and everything changed. They know. He stood in the doorway of our apartment, his face pale and drawn. Someone from the university saw us at your prenatal appointment. Word got back to them. Okay. I set down the baby name book I'd been reading. So they know. What did they say? He couldn't meet my eyes. My father called you a situation that needs handling. My mother suggested we consider alternatives. The word landed like a physical blow. Alternatives. You mean abortion? I told them no. He moved toward me, his hands raised like he was approaching a frightened animal. I told them we're keeping the babies. That I love you. That this is my choice. But. He sat heavily on the couch. My father didn't take it well. I learned that night about Theodore Mercer. About the man who had built Mercer Dynamics from a regional pharmaceutical company into a global empire through ruthlessness and strategic marriages and the elimination of anything that threatened the family image. Theodore Mercer didn't get angry. He got strategic. Sebastian recounted the conversation in devastating detail. His father laying out exactly what choosing me would cost. No position at Mercer Dynamics. No access to the trust fund until he was 30 instead of 25. No family support of any kind. Complete isolation from the only life he'd ever known. His mother had been quieter but no less cruel. Suggesting that girls like me knew exactly what we were doing when we trapped men from established families. Girls like what? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Poor girls. Ambitious girls. Girls who don't belong in rooms with crystal water goblets and security guards and family names that appear on buildings. I told them they were wrong about you. Sebastian finally met my eyes. I told them I chose you. I chose our babies. I choose the life we're building. But even as he said it, I heard the tremor in his voice. Saw the way his fingers drummed against his knee. A nervous habit I'd learned meant he was calculating. Planning. Trying to find angles in an impossible equation. I just need a few days. He took my hands. To sort things out. To make them understand. This doesn't change anything between us, Vivienne. I love you. I love our babies. He kissed me then. Desperate and deep, like he was trying to transfer certainty through touch. A few days, I repeated. And then we start our life. The real one. Not the one my parents planned, but the one we choose. I walked home that night with my hand pressed protectively over my stomach, whispering to the tiny lives inside me. Your father says he chooses us. Let's hope he means it. 3 days turned into a week. His phone went straight to voicemail. He didn't show up at the bookstore. By day 10, I was beyond worried. I was frantic. I took the bus to the university, but his roommate said he packed a bag and left. Muttered something about family business. I went to the Mercer Dynamics building downtown, but security wouldn't let me past the lobby. I spent my last $40 on a ride share to the glass house on the cliff. The housekeeper who answered the door looked at me with a mixture of pity and discomfort that told me everything before she even spoke. Mr. Sebastian isn't here. She wouldn't quite meet my eyes. He's traveling. Traveling where? Europe, I believe. Mr. Theodore made the arrangements. Extended business training, he called it. Learning international operations. Business training. They'd sent him away like a problem to be solved. And he'd gone. No goodbye. No explanation. No forwarding address. Just absence where promises used to live. I walked 3 miles to the nearest bus stop because I'd spent my last money getting there. The housekeeper offered to call me a cab, but I couldn't bear accepting anything from the people who'd orchestrated my abandonment. 5 hours later, I was back in the studio apartment, staring at the same cracked ceiling I'd been so grateful to escape when Sebastian had appeared in my life. The furniture he'd bought. The sheets with the impossible thread count. The refrigerator full of food I no longer had appetite to eat. And inside me, 2 tiny hearts beating. 2 lives depending on someone who had just been discarded like yesterday's garbage. If you've ever been broken by someone you trusted completely, comment survivor below. And if you believe that people who do monstrous things eventually face consequences, keep watching. Because what happens next proves that karma doesn't forget. It just waits. I should have been destroyed. For a while, I was. But here's the thing about grief that nearly kills you. If you survive it, you become something harder. Something that refuses to break twice. Sebastian reappeared 3 weeks later. I was at my bookstore shift, shelving romance novels in the back corner, when his voice made me freeze. Vivienne. Please. Let me explain. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes. Clothes wrinkled in a way I'd never seen. A haunted expression that part of me wanted to soothe even though he'd abandoned me pregnant and alone for 3 weeks. Explain. I kept my voice low. The bookstore's walls were thin. Explain what, Sebastian? How you promised me forever and then vanished. How you let me think you were dead or in prison or anywhere except deliberately avoiding me. My father. He scrubbed his hands over his face. He had people watching me. Monitoring my communications. Every time I tried to contact you, he what? He blocked it. Deleted messages before I could send them. Had someone with me constantly to make sure I didn't sneak away. So you're a hostage now? Unable to pick up a phone for 3 weeks. I was. He stepped closer. Vivienne, I was. But I got away. I'm here now. And I have a plan. The plan, as he explained it, was to move me to a private facility upstate. A place his father didn't know about. Somewhere I could have the baby safely, away from Theodore Mercer's reach, protected from whatever his family might try to do. It sounds extreme. Sebastian paced the narrow aisle between romance and mystery. But you don't understand what my father is capable of. He's made problems disappear before. People who threatened the family reputation. They just vanished. I can't let that happen to you. To our babies. I should have said no. Should have told him that if his family was that dangerous, the solution was police, not running. Should have recognized that someone whose response to conflict was hiding in isolation was not someone equipped to protect anyone. But I was 11 weeks pregnant. Barely making rent. Completely alone in the world except for the man standing in front of me, claiming he still loved me and promising safety I desperately needed. Okay. The word came out before I could stop it. Okay. I'll go. The facility was a Victorian manor 3 hours from the city. Surrounded by forest. Staffed by nurses and doctors who smiled too much and asked too few questions. I was given a private room with floral wallpaper and windows that overlooked a garden designed to look peaceful. Other women lived there. Some pregnant. Some recovering from pregnancies. All of them with similar stories. Powerful men. Inconvenient complications. Arrangements made behind closed doors. Sebastian visited weekly. He brought books and prenatal vitamins and updates on his war with his family. Theodore was relentless, he claimed. Monitoring everything. But Sebastian was building escape plans. Saving money in accounts his father didn't know about. Preparing for the day when they could leave together and start fresh. I wanted to believe him. And for months, I did. Then came the night everything shattered. 8 months pregnant. December 12th. I woke to cramping that quickly became agony. Something's wrong. I couldn't catch my breath. There was blood. Too much blood. My sheets were soaked with it. The nurse who answered my call button took one look and started shouting for backup. The next hours exist in fragments. Being wheeled down a hallway. Bright lights. Faces in masks. Someone saying the words emergency cesarean and significant hemorrhaging. Sebastian's face appearing above me. Pale. Terrified. Telling me it would be okay. That I was strong. That our babies were fighters. A countdown. 10. 9. 8. And then darkness. I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I woke, the first thing I saw was Sebastian. He was sitting beside my bed, holding my hand, his face streaked with tears. Vivienne. His voice broke. I'm so sorry. The babies. I tried to sit up, but pain screamed through my abdomen. Where are the babies? Are they in the NICU? Can I see them? Sebastian's face crumbled. And I knew. Before he said the words, I knew. They didn't make it. He was sobbing now. Both of them. There was nothing they could do. They tried everything, but there was too much damage. Too much bleeding. Vivienne, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The scream that came out of me didn't sound human. It was animal. Primal. The sound of something essential being ripped from my soul. No. I kept saying it. Over and over. Like I could make it true through sheer repetition. No. 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 They can't be. I felt them kicking yesterday. They were alive. They were. Gone. Sebastian pulled me against his chest. They're gone. I don't remember the next few weeks clearly. They gave me sedatives. Too many of them. I floated in and out of consciousness, barely eating, unable to process a world that continued existing while my children did not. Sebastian stayed. For a while. He held me while I cried. He brought food I didn't eat and water I forgot to drink. He talked about grief counseling and healing and eventually trying again. But something in him had changed. Or maybe something in him was finally showing its true face. I have to go back to the city. He sat beside my bed 3 weeks after the worst night of my life. My father is using my absence to consolidate control of my shares. If I don't return, I'll lose everything. Okay. My voice was hollow. When do we leave? Vivienne. He couldn't look at me. My father arranged a marriage. Strategic. For the company. I tried to fight it, but now, with the babies gone. You're leaving me. It's better this way. Now he met my eyes, and I barely recognized the man looking back. You can start fresh. Move somewhere new. I'll make sure you're taken care of financially. Take care of. I sat up, ignoring the pain. You're offering me money. After everything? After the life you promised? After the babies The babies are gone. His voice hardened. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe we weren't meant. Get out. Vivienne. Get out. He stood. Straightened his jacket. Looked at me one final time with something that might have been guilt or might have been relief. The monthly payments will start next week. You won't have to worry about money. Just take care of yourself. Then he walked out. And the door closed behind him. And I was alone in a strange facility with an empty body and an emptier future. The payments arrived for exactly 3 months. Then they stopped. No explanation. No warning. Just nothing. A week after the final payment, 2 men arrived at my room. They told me my time at the facility was complete. That a car would take me to the bus station. That I would receive $500 and an address for a women's shelter in the city. 20 years old. 4 months after losing everything. Deposited at a bus station like I was garbage. I sat on a bench with my $500 and my single suitcase, and I made myself a promise. I would not die here. I would not give up. I would take whatever was left of me and build something, even if I had to build it from ashes. But what I didn't know then, what I couldn't have possibly known, was that my story wasn't over. It was just about to truly begin. 8 months later, I collapsed in the bathroom of a free clinic on East 47th Street. I'd gone in for a cough that wouldn't go away. Waited 3 hours in the crowded lobby. Finally got called back for vitals. And then, while washing my hands in the bathroom, pain exploded through my abdomen and my legs gave out. When I opened my eyes, a woman was crouched beside me. Dark skin, natural hair pulled back, eyes that had seen too much and still managed to be kind. Hey. Hey, stay with me. Her voice was calm but urgent. I'm Celeste. I'm a nurse. Can you tell me what's happening? The pain came again, and I screamed. I don't know. I don't. This isn't. I can't be. But I was. The doctor who examined me on the bathroom floor confirmed what should have been impossible. You're pregnant. He said the words like they were completely normal. Full term, by the look of it. You didn't know. The room spun. My babies died. 8 months ago. I had a cesarean. They told me. But even as I said it, the truth was becoming horrifically clear. They hadn't told me my babies died because my babies died. They'd told me my babies died because they took one of them. Sold one of them. And left the other one still inside me, hoping, maybe, that it would die too. Or simply not caring enough to check. You need to push. Celeste's voice cut through my shock. There's no time to get you to a delivery room. This baby is coming now. And you need to push. Roman Hartwell was born at 6 pounds 3 ounces, on the floor of a free clinic bathroom, caught by a nurse named Celeste who would become the closest thing to family I would ever have. He had his father's jaw and his mother's stubborn refusal to give up. And as I held him against my chest, still shaking, still processing the magnitude of what had been done to me, I whispered the first promise of millions I would keep. You are not a mistake. You were never a mistake. You are wanted. You are chosen. You are mine. And I will never, ever let anyone take you from me. Somewhere out there, I now understood, I had another child. A twin. Sold to strangers while I lay unconscious. Raised by someone else while I mourned. But that search would have to wait. Because right now, in this bathroom, I had a newborn who needed me. And I would not fail him the way I had been failed. This is not the end, baby boy. I kissed his tiny forehead. This is where we begin. The first year of Roman's life exists in my memory as a series of impossible calculations. Diapers cost $17 for a pack that lasted 5 days. Formula, because my body was too stressed and malnourished to produce enough milk, ran $32 every 2 weeks. The cheapest apartment I could find in a neighborhood that wouldn't get us killed was $800 a month. Utilities. Transportation. The occasional clothing item when Roman outgrew things faster than I could find them at thrift stores. And against all of that, I had my part-time bookstore job that paid $8 an hour, a night shift at a 24-hour diner that paid $6.50 plus tips, and a weekend gig cleaning office buildings through an agency that didn't ask too many questions. I slept in fragments. 2 hours here. 90 minutes there. Sometimes just 20 minutes with my head on the bookstore counter while Roman dozed in his car seat beneath the register. My manager, a woman named Dorothy who had raised 4 kids on her own, looked the other way as long as the shelves got stocked. "You're going to kill yourself." Celeste stood in the doorway of my apartment, which wasn't really an apartment. It was a single room above a 24-hour laundromat, accessed by an exterior staircase that creaked ominously in the wind. She held a bag of groceries I hadn't asked for and couldn't afford to repay. "Then at least Roman will get the life insurance." I was joking. Mostly. That's not funny. I know. I took the groceries because refusing them would have been stupid, and I couldn't afford stupid. "Thank you." Celeste had become my anchor in those early months. She'd followed up after Roman's bathroom birth, checking on us at the shelter where we'd landed initially, helping me navigate the maze of social services and assistance programs that might have gone completely untapped without her guidance. She'd found me this apartment when the shelter's time limit ran out. She'd connected me with the agency that provided the office cleaning work. "You remind me of myself." She sat on my second-hand couch, which also served as my bed, bouncing Roman on her knee while I put away the food. I aged out of foster care too. 12 years ago. Thought I'd never make it. But here I am. Here you are. A nurse. With a real apartment. With a real apartment, she confirmed. And a cat. And a life I built from nothing because nobody was going to build it for me. She looked at me with those eyes that had seen too much. "You can do this, Vivienne. It won't always be this hard." I wanted to believe her. Some days I did. Other days, when Roman was sick and I couldn't afford the doctor, when the electricity got shut off and I had to wash his bottles in cold water, when I lay awake doing math that never added up no matter how many times I ran the numbers, I wondered if I was just delaying the inevitable collapse. But Roman. That boy. From the very beginning, he was a fighter. He learned to crawl early because the apartment was too small for a proper playpen, so he had to navigate around furniture and laundry baskets and stacks of library books I brought home to read to him. He spoke his first word at 10 months. "Mama." Clear as a bell. Like he'd been practicing in secret and wanted to get it exactly right. He watched everything with those hazel eyes, the ones that matched his father's so precisely it sometimes made my chest hurt. But there was nothing of Sebastian's weakness in Roman. Nothing of that capacity for betrayal. My son observed the world with the calculating attention of a survivor, and even at 1 year old, I could see the man he would become. "Mama work?" He'd ask when I put on my uniform for the diner shift. "Mama works so Roman can eat." "Roman eat. Mama eat too." The question broke my heart every time. Because the answer was often no. Mama didn't eat so Roman could eat. Mama ate whatever Roman didn't finish, scraped the remaining bites off his plate after he was asleep, called it dinner. I did not poison him with the truth about his father. That was my promise from the bathroom floor, and I kept it through every hungry night and every exhausted morning. When Roman asked about his daddy, which he started doing around age 3, I told him simple truths stripped of venom. "Your daddy lives far away. Does he love me?" "I don't know, baby. I haven't talked to him in a long time. But I love you enough for 10 daddies. Is that okay?" "That's okay, Mama." It had to be okay. Because it was all I had to offer. The years passed in a blur of work and sacrifice and small victories that felt enormous against the backdrop of our circumstances. Roman started school. His teachers said he was gifted. Too smart for his grade level. Reading years above his age. They wanted to test him for accelerated programs, but those programs were in schools across the city, and I couldn't afford the transportation or the time away from work. So I supplemented at home. Library books by the dozen. Math problems written on napkins during my diner breaks. Science experiments with baking soda and vinegar and whatever household items could demonstrate basic principles. I taught him everything I knew about design and architecture, showing him how to see spaces, how to understand why buildings made people feel certain ways. "Why is this room sad?" I'd ask him as we walked through a building, any building. "The light is wrong." He was 6, analyzing a bank lobby like a professional. "And the chairs are too far apart. People can't talk to each other. What would you do differently?" "Windows. Bigger windows. And maybe some plants." Plants make people feel alive. He was brilliant. I'd always known it, but watching him articulate concepts that took most adults years to understand, I felt something beyond pride. I felt hope. Maybe, just maybe, this child I'd almost lost, this miracle who'd survived against impossible odds, maybe he would have a future beyond the boundaries of our small life. Roman turned 10 on a Tuesday in May. I'd saved for 3 months to buy him a second-hand bicycle, repainted carefully to hide the scratches. Celeste brought a cake she'd baked herself. We celebrated in the small apartment we'd moved to buy then, a one-bedroom in a slightly better neighborhood, hard-won through years of incremental raises and additional side jobs. Make a wish, baby. Roman closed his eyes over the candles. When he opened them, there was something serious in his expression. I wished for you to rest, Mama. You never rest. That's not how wishes work. You're supposed to wish for yourself. I did. He blew out the candles. If you rest, you won't be so tired. And if you're not so tired, you can play with me more. That's for me. I started crying. Couldn't help it. This child who had every reason to be selfish, who had grown up with so little, whose birthday present was a repainted bicycle while other kids got video games and expensive sneakers. His wish was for me to rest. 3 months later, I collapsed in our kitchen. I was making his lunch for the next day. Spreading peanut butter on bread. One moment upright, the next moment on the floor, the knife clattering across the linoleum while my vision went black at the edges. Mom. Roman's voice, terrified, far away then closer as he shook my shoulder. Mom, wake up. I tried to speak but couldn't make my mouth work. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard him on the phone. Calm. Clear. Giving our address with perfect precision. Describing my symptoms like he'd been trained for emergencies. My mom fainted. She's breathing but she won't wake up. She works a lot and sometimes she doesn't eat dinner. Please send help. The paramedics arrived in 8 minutes. A woman named Linda checked my vitals while her partner kept Roman calm, explaining what they were doing in a voice meant to reassure a scared child. When's the last time you ate a real meal? Linda asked after I'd regained consciousness. Sitting down. More than coffee and whatever your kid left on his plate. I couldn't remember. Blood pressure is low. Blood sugars crashed. You're dehydrated. She helped me sit up slowly. You're trying to run on empty, and bodies don't work that way. What are you doing that's got you this run down? Working. How many jobs? 4. She looked at Roman, then back at me. You can't keep this pace. He needs you vertical more than he needs you superhuman. They wanted to take me to the hospital. I refused. Couldn't afford the ambulance bill. Couldn't afford the ER visit. Couldn't afford to miss tomorrow's shifts. Linda made me promise to see a doctor within the week. Left me with electrolyte packets and stern warnings about self-care. But it was Roman who delivered the real intervention. Mom. He sat beside me on the couch with a maturity that broke my heart. I know about the bills. Baby, that's not your worry too. I see you writing checks at 3 in the morning. I know you skip dinner so I can have seconds. I hear you crying in the bathroom when you think I'm asleep. I couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. You're killing yourself trying to make sure I don't notice we're poor. He met my eyes with a steadiness far beyond his 10 years. But I noticed. And I'd rather be poor with a mom who's alive than have stuff and lose you. When did you get so wise? I learned from you. But Mom, you taught me to be strong, not stupid. And working yourself to death is stupid. His bluntness made me laugh through tears. You're right. You're absolutely right. So what are we going to do differently? We. Always we. Never just me carrying the burden alone. The next day, I quit the office cleaning job. The loss of income terrified me, but not as much as the image of Roman calling 911 again. Maybe next time too late. Through Mrs. Davidson, a regular at the diner who always tipped 30% and asked about my design background, I got my first real event planning client. Her daughter's sweet 16. Tiny budget, but creative freedom. I transformed a church basement into a garden wonderland with thrift store finds and strategic lighting. The photos got shared. The reviews got written. And suddenly I had 3 referrals. The money wasn't immediate or impressive, but it was a start. More importantly, it was work that fed my soul instead of draining it. Creativity that energized rather than exhausted. Vivienne Hartwell event design started as a side hustle and grew into something real. By the time Roman turned 15, I had a small client base, a growing reputation, and for the first time in over a decade, a savings account with more than $50 in it. Roman watched me build something from nothing, and it shaped him. At 15, he stood 6 inches taller than me, with a protective instinct that had been developing since childhood. He walked me to my car after late events. He learned to cook so I wouldn't have to after long days. He took jobs on weekends, mowing lawns and shoveling snow, insisting on contributing to household expenses even though I told him to save for college. Mom. He stood in the kitchen doorway one November morning, 16 years old, watching me sketch centerpiece designs at our small table. I want to go into security. Security? Like cybersecurity? Like personal protection? He sat across from me. I've been researching. There are programs for executive protection, event security, threat assessment. It's good money, and it uses all the skills I already have. What skills? Reading rooms. He shrugged like it was obvious. Anticipating problems. Staying calm when things go wrong. You taught me all of that, even if you didn't mean to. I looked at my son, this young man who had grown up watching me navigate crisis after crisis, who had learned survival by osmosis, who had spent his whole life protecting me in whatever small ways he could. Is this really what you want? I want to keep people safe. He met my eyes. The way you've always kept me safe. I think I'd be good at it. He was more than good. He was exceptional. Roman graduated high school with honors and earned a scholarship to Columbia's security management program. He worked campus security to pay for expenses I couldn't cover. He interned with executive protection firms during summers. By 22, he had a reputation in the industry as someone who noticed everything, anticipated problems before they existed, and carried himself with an authority that made powerful people feel secure. At 27, he was head of security for the highest-profile events in New York City. Companies paid premium rates for Roman Hartwell because he was the best. Period. And through all of it, he never asked about his father. Not since childhood. He'd made his peace with the blank space on his birth certificate, the absent figure who had never materialized. I don't need to know his name, he told me on his 21st birthday, when I offered again to tell him the truth. I have you. I have Celeste. I have everyone who showed up when it was hard. That's more family than some people ever get. I thought the story was over. 27 years of survival, of building something from wreckage, of raising a son who became extraordinary despite everything working against him. Then the email arrived. I'd submitted my DNA to an ancestry website on a whim. Not looking for anything specific. Just curious about my own origins, the birth family I'd never known. The results came back with the expected ethnic breakdown, some distant cousin matches I had no interest in pursuing, and one notification that changed everything. You have a close family match. Parent or child? I stared at the notification for several minutes, certain I was misreading. I had one child. Roman. And he hadn't submitted to any ancestry website. The match came from someone named Xavier Sterling. I clicked through to his profile with shaking hands, and when his photograph loaded, I stopped breathing. He looked exactly like Roman. The same bone structure. The same height, based on the proportions in the image. The same hazel eyes flecked with gold that I'd first seen in Sebastian Mercer's face nearly 3 decades ago. Even the way he tilted his head in the photograph was identical. I spent the next 3 hours researching Xavier Sterling with the obsessive focus of someone whose entire understanding of reality had just shattered. He was 32 years old. The world's youngest self-made tech billionaire. Worth $12.8 billion through cybersecurity companies he'd founded and grown. Known for his ruthless business acumen wrapped in genuine philanthropy. Reclusive. Brilliant. Adopted as an infant through a premium placement agency. Adopted for $2.4 million, according to one investigative article about black market adoptions in the 90s that mentioned his case as an example of how wealthy families paid extraordinary sums for healthy white infants. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The twin Sebastian told me had died. The baby they'd cut from my body while I lay unconscious. He hadn't died at all. He'd been sold to the highest bidder while I mourned over empty coffins. And now, 27 years later, he'd submitted his DNA to a website looking for the same answers I was looking for. I composed and deleted 11 different messages before finally sending one. My name is Vivienne Hartwell. I believe I may be your biological mother. I know this seems impossible. If you're willing to meet, I can explain everything. His response came 4 hours later. I've been looking for you my whole life. Please. Tell me when and where. We met at a private suite in a hotel neither of us named to anyone. Neutral territory. Maximum privacy. The kind of precautions that two people take when their lives are about to change irreversibly. Xavier arrived first. I know because when I entered the suite, he was already standing by the window, his back to me, looking out at a city that had no idea what was about to happen. Then he turned around, and I saw my son's face on a stranger. The resemblance to Roman was beyond uncanny. It was identical. The same jaw. The same cheekbones. The same way of holding himself, balanced and ready. If I hadn't known Roman was across the city at a security briefing, I would have thought I was looking at him. Ms. Hartwell. Xavier's voice was controlled, but I could hear the tremor beneath the surface. I brought documentation. DNA confirmation. Adoption records I had unsealed through legal action. I thought you might need proof. I don't need proof. I couldn't look away from his face. I carried you for 8 months. I felt you move inside me. I named you before you were born. And then I woke up from surgery and they told me you were dead. His composure cracked. I watched something shift in his expression, the same vulnerability I'd seen in Roman when he was small and hurt and trying to be brave. They told you I was dead. Both of you. Both twins. They said there was nothing they could do. I had a breakdown. I couldn't function for weeks. And then your father, Sebastian, he left me too. Arranged a strategic marriage. Called what we had a mistake. I had nothing. No money, no family, no babies. I was completely destroyed. But I have a brother. Xavier's voice caught. You said both twins. If one was me, who was? Your brother is alive. I had to steady myself against the back of a chair. I didn't know I was still pregnant when they sent me away. He was born 8 months later in a free clinic bathroom. I raised him alone. He's 27 years old. He's working security at your biological father's company Christmas gala next week. The irony of the last sentence landed between us like a bomb. Xavier moved to the couch and sat heavily, like his legs had given out. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Just stared at his hands, processing the complete restructuring of everything he believed about his origins. My adoptive parents told me I was found abandoned at a hospital. Premium placement through a private agency. They paid $2.4 million for me. His voice was hollow. I always knew that price was wrong. That number haunted me. Why would an abandoned infant cost that much? Unless you weren't abandoned. I sat across from him. You were stolen. From me. Sold for profit while I lay unconscious from a surgery I never consented to. I had investigators looking into it for years. Xavier pulled a folder from his briefcase and laid it on the coffee table between us. Everything I found was dead ends and sealed records. But when the DNA match came through, I hired new people. Better people. They unsealed things that were supposed to stay buried forever. He opened the folder, and I saw documents that confirmed my worst suspicions in clinical, devastating detail. The facility where Sebastian had hidden me. Medical records showing the emergency cesarean. Notes about 1 infant removed and 1 remaining. Payment records. $2.4 million transferred to an offshore account registered to Sebastian Mercer. Not his family's account. Not Theodore Mercer's strategic arrangement. Sebastian's personal account. He'd done this himself. For money. For convenience. For the simple cold calculation that twins were a complication and one could be sold while the other might die or might not matter. He profited from selling me. Xavier's voice was deadly calm. $2.4 million. He's been drawing from that account for decades. And he left me with nothing. I couldn't look at the documents anymore. $500 and an address for a homeless shelter. I want to destroy him. The words hung in the air between us. Mother and son, strangers who shared blood and trauma and a burning need for justice. I've thought about it. Every day for 27 years. But I had Roman to raise. I couldn't afford to spend my energy on revenge when my son needed me present. You have 2 sons now. Xavier looked at me with those hazel eyes that matched his brother's, that matched his father's. And one of them has the resources to make Sebastian Mercer face exactly what he did. What are you suggesting? He stands up at his company Christmas gala every year. Gives a speech about philanthropy and family values and building something meaningful. Xavier's jaw tightened. I've been invited 4 times. I never went because I didn't want to be seen as seeking his business connections. But this year, I'm going to that gala. And I'm going to stand in front of everyone he respects and tell them exactly what kind of man he really is. Roman will be there. He's working security. I know. Xavier met my eyes. I found that out yesterday. My biological brother is protecting my biological father at an event I'm about to destroy. The universe has a twisted sense of poetry. Do we tell Roman first? It was the question I'd been dreading since the moment I'd connected the dots. If we tell him beforehand, Xavier said slowly, he'll have to choose. Show up to work pretending nothing's wrong, or refuse the assignment and raise questions. Either way, he'll be performing. Processing in public. Trying to manage his reaction while the world watches. And if we don't tell him? Then he finds out with everyone else. He'll be blindsided. Hurt that we didn't warn him. But his reaction will be genuine. And when he confronts Sebastian, it won't be rehearsed. It'll be real. I don't want to ambush my son. Neither do I. Xavier leaned forward. But think about what we're doing. We're not just exposing Sebastian. We're rewriting Roman's entire understanding of his life. Of who he is. That's going to be devastating either way. The question is whether we let him process in private, where no one sees and Sebastian can spin the narrative, or in public, where every reaction is witnessed and documented. It felt like manipulation. Like the kind of strategic thinking that had made Sebastian so dangerous. But Xavier was right about one thing. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about accountability. About making sure that Sebastian Mercer couldn't bury this truth the way he'd buried so many others. And if Roman found out in private first, if he had time to process and compose himself, Sebastian would have opportunities to control the story. Bribe. Threaten. Convince Roman that his mother was unstable or lying or exaggerating. In public, surrounded by witnesses and cameras, there was no controlling the narrative. Roman is going to be furious with us. I said finally. For not telling him first. I know. He might not forgive me for a long time. I know that too. Xavier's expression softened. But you raised him, Miss Hartwell. For 27 years, you raised him alone. You protected him from your own trauma. You gave him stability and love and a foundation strong enough that he became exceptional. If he can't eventually understand why we did this the way we did, then I don't know my brother at all, even though I've never met him. It was the strangest thing, hearing this man who had grown up with billions of dollars talk about understanding Roman. They'd been raised in opposite worlds. One with every advantage. One with every obstacle. And yet, looking at Xavier, I could see the same core that I'd watched develop in Roman over 27 years. The same intensity. The same protective instinct. The same hunger to make things right. What you're about to witness is the moment 27 years of secrets collapsed in a single ballroom. If you've ever wanted to see someone face the consequences of their cruelty, you're about to get exactly that. But first, if this story has you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe because this confrontation is unlike anything you've ever heard. December 23rd. The Mercer Dynamics Annual Christmas Gala. The $500 million Maybach Accelero limousine pulled up to the entrance of the Mercer building at exactly 7:47 p.m. 13 minutes before Sebastian was scheduled to give his keynote speech. The timing was deliberate. Xavier had insisted on it. We want everyone already gathered. Already watching. Already waiting for him to take the stage. And then we want them to see us arrive and know that something is about to change. I adjusted my gown in the leather interior of the vehicle. It was the most expensive thing I'd ever worn. Borrowed from a designer who owed Xavier a favor. Midnight blue with silver threading that caught the light. The kind of dress that demanded attention. My whole life, I tried to be invisible. Tried to survive by not being noticed. Tonight, I wanted every eye in that room. Ready, mother? Xavier sat across from me, his tuxedo custom cut, his expression calm despite the magnitude of what we were about to do. I've been ready for 27 years. I just didn't know what I was waiting for. The door opened. Camera flashes exploded. Murmurs rippled through the crowd of paparazzi and guests arriving behind us. A $500 million limousine doesn't go unnoticed. Neither does Xavier Sterling, whose face was famous enough to stop traffic. But what really silenced them was the moment Xavier offered me his arm and we began walking toward the entrance together. An unknown woman in a designer gown, escorted by one of the world's most powerful men, approaching a gala hosted by his apparent rival. Who is she? I heard someone whisper. Why is Sterling here? Someone else asked. I thought he and Mercer hated each other. The ballroom was everything money could buy and taste could curate. 17-foot Christmas trees dripping with crystal ornaments. Ice sculptures carved into the Mercer Dynamics logo. A full orchestra playing holiday standards that would transition seamlessly into dancing music after the speeches. 400 of the city's most powerful people in gowns and tuxedos, drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than I used to spend on groceries in a month. I spotted Roman immediately. He was stationed near the main entrance, exactly where the head of security should be. Professional. Alert. Scanning the crowd for threats with the practiced attention I'd watched him develop over years. When his eyes found me, I watched confusion flicker across his face. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not as a guest. Not in a gown worth more than our old apartment. Not on the arm of a billionaire whose face was on magazine covers. Then his gaze shifted to Xavier. And I watched my son look at his own reflection. The blood drained from Roman's face. His hand, which had been resting near his earpiece, dropped to his side. His entire body went rigid as he processed the impossible. A stranger who shared his exact features. His exact height. His exact way of standing with weight balanced perfectly for quick movement. Mom. His voice carried across the sudden silence. People had stopped talking, sensing drama more entertaining than their own conversations. What's going on? Before I could answer, Sebastian's voice cut through from across the ballroom. Vivienne. He stepped away from the cluster of executives he'd been charming, his face cycling through recognition, confusion, and dawning horror. That's not. You can't. They're dead. They've been dead for 27 years. The room went completely silent. Even the orchestra's dying notes seemed to freeze. Can't what, Sebastian? I projected my voice to Carrie. 27 years of shouting over diner noise and laundromat machines had given me lungs that could fill a ballroom. Can't show up to your Christmas gala? Can't introduce our sons? Yes, sons, plural. To the guests you've been lying to for nearly 3 decades. The gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave. 400 phones rose simultaneously, recording everything. Xavier stepped forward. The crowd parted for him instinctively. Wealth recognizes wealth, and even without introduction, these people sensed they were looking at someone who outranked most of them. My name is Xavier Sterling. His voice carried the authority of someone who'd commanded boardrooms since his early 20s. And I'm very much alive. You sold me to the highest bidder 3 hours after I was born. You told my mother both her children died. You did this so you could marry a strategic wife without complications. For money. For convenience. For the simple calculation that twins were inconvenient and one could be disposed of profitably. Sebastian's face was the color of ash. I don't know what you're talking about. This is clearly some kind of. I have the records. Xavier pulled documents from his jacket. Medical files from the facility where you hid my mother. Payment confirmations showing $2.4 million deposited into your personal offshore account 3 days after my birth. Not your family's account. Yours. You profited from selling your own child while your other son survived inside a mother you abandoned at a bus station with $500. Victoria Mercer, Sebastian's wife of 26 years, stood near the stage. Her face cycled through confusion, denial, and the dawning horror of realizing her entire marriage was built on a lie. Victoria. Sebastian turned to her, hands raised. This is clearly some kind of extortion attempt. These people are. These people. I stepped closer to him. You promised me forever, Sebastian. You said we'd run away together. Build something real. And when I got pregnant, you hid me in a facility, let doctors cut one of my babies from my body without my consent, sold him to strangers, and then left me to believe both my children were dead. I had a breakdown. I lost everything. And you married her with my $2.4 million, making your transition easier. I found Roman in the crowd. He was still standing by the entrance, frozen, his entire understanding of his life restructuring itself in real time. Roman. I spoke directly to him now. I never knew. I swear to you. I believed both babies died. I spent 27 years mourning your brother because your father told me he didn't survive. When I found out the truth 6 weeks ago, I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know if there was a right way. My son's face was unreadable. The professional mask he wore for work, the one that made clients trust him implicitly, had slammed into place. You're my father. Roman's voice was flat, controlled. The voice of a man managing a crisis. Sebastian Mercer is my biological father. The Sebastian Mercer. Whose events I've worked for 3 years. Who I've been protecting tonight. I had no choice. Sebastian's voice cracked. My family. My father. They would have destroyed you both. I was protecting. You were protecting yourself. Xavier's voice cut like surgical steel. I've spent 6 months investigating. The adoption wasn't arranged through your family. You kept the money. $2.4 million. You didn't sacrifice us to protect us. You sold one child and abandoned the other because we were inconvenient. Sebastian's carefully constructed mask crumbled. For a moment, I saw the boy I'd fallen in love with at 19. Scared. Cornered. Desperate. But then his face hardened, and I saw the man he'd become. The one who'd chosen money and reputation over his own children. Roman moved first. My son, who had spent his entire career protecting powerful people, crossed the ballroom floor toward the most powerful person he'd ever encountered. His biological father. The man whose face was currently being broadcast on 400 cell phone cameras. He didn't yell. Didn't threaten. Didn't raise his voice or his fists. Instead, he removed his security badge and set it on the nearest table. I spent 20 years wondering why I wasn't enough. Roman's voice was quiet, but in the absolute silence of the ballroom, every word carried. Why my mother worked herself to exhaustion while other families had safety nets. Why I learned to fight before I learned to ride a bike. Why I never had a father to ask questions I didn't know how to phrase. Sebastian opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I built myself into someone valuable despite having nothing. Roman continued. I learned that reliability matters more than pedigree. I figured out that showing up consistently makes you irreplaceable. I became someone that men like you pay premium rates to trust with your safety. He paused, letting the irony land. You gave me nothing. Not a name. Not a dollar. Not a single moment of presence. And I turned nothing into everything I needed. So thank you, actually. Thank you for being so thoroughly absent that I never learned your cowardice. Xavier stepped beside his brother. The twin he'd just met. Whose face matched his own exactly. Whose existence rewrote everything he'd understood about his origins. Our mother raised Roman alone in conditions you can't imagine. Xavier addressed the crowd as much as Sebastian. She believed both her children died because one man decided lying was easier than accountability. Tonight, I'm announcing that the Sterling Foundation will be donating $200 million to organizations supporting single mothers, foster youth, and survivors of trafficking. The first grant will be named for Vivienne Hartwell. The woman who proved that love built from nothing outweighs fortunes built on betrayal. The applause started slowly. Then it built. Not from everyone. Some of these people were Sebastian's friends, his allies, his business partners. But enough. Enough to signal that the narrative had shifted. That Sebastian Mercer, for all his wealth and influence, had lost something money couldn't rebuild. The benefit of the doubt. Sebastian stood alone on that stage. His wife had walked away. His guests had turned their backs. His security detail had stepped aside. And the two sons he disposed of 27 years ago stood side by side, united by blood and trauma and a mother who'd never stopped fighting for them. The months that followed rewrote everything. Victoria Mercer filed for divorce within 2 weeks. The prenuptial agreement, which had seemed ironclad, contained a morality clause that Sebastian's actions had apparently violated spectacularly. Her lawyers were pursuing half of everything. Investigations launched by 3 separate government agencies revealed additional misconduct. Financial irregularities. Ethical violations in clinical trials. Personal indiscretions that made the twin scandal seem almost tame by comparison. Sebastian retained lawyers, denied everything, tried to spin the story. But some truths, once spoken aloud, refused to be unspoken. Roman and Xavier spent their first Christmas together in my small apartment. Not celebrating. Not exactly. More like processing. Circling each other like puzzles trying to determine which pieces fit where. They'd been raised in opposite universes. One with every advantage money could buy. One with every obstacle poverty could construct. And yet, watching them together, I saw the same core in both of them. The same laugh. The same way of pausing before important sentences. The same instinct to protect people they cared about. I used to dream about having a brother. Roman sat on my second-hand couch, watching Xavier examine the photographs on my wall. When I was little, I'd make up stories about a twin who lived somewhere amazing and would someday come find me. And now? I asked. Now I'm trying to figure out who I am when I'm not the only one. He shook his head slowly. It's strange. He had everything I didn't. The best schools. Endless resources. Connections that opened every door. But he was alone too. Different kind of loneliness, but still alone. Xavier heard us talking. He crossed the room with coffee he'd brewed in my ancient machine, which he'd learned to operate despite probably never touching anything less than commercial-grade equipment before. I had money. Xavier settled beside his brother on the couch. You had her. He nodded toward me. I'd trade every dollar for 27 years with a mother who actually wanted me. I couldn't speak. The tears came too fast. The kind that had been waiting decades to fall. You have me now. I managed finally. Both of you. For however long you want me. Forever sounds right. Roman took Xavier's hand. Two grown men. Twins who'd been strangers until weeks ago. Holding on to each other like lifelines across a chasm of stolen years. Sebastian requested a meeting 3 months after the gala. Through lawyers. Everything he did filtered through intermediaries now. I went alone. Sat across from him in a conference room that cost more per hour than I'd earned in a month during the worst years. He looked diminished. Smaller than the man who terrified me into compliance at 19. I don't expect forgiveness. He began. Good. You won't receive it. He nodded, accepting this. I was wrong. About everything. I've had time. Too much time. To review my choices. I wish I could explain them in ways that make sense, but they don't. They never did. I chose the easy path because the hard one terrified me. I sacrificed people who trusted me because I was too weak to sacrifice my own comfort. You sold our child, Sebastian. You let me believe both my babies died. You walked away and never looked back. I know. His voice cracked. I know what I am. What I've always been. A coward who convinced himself that cruelty was pragmatism. I can't undo it. I can't make it better. I can only tell you that watching Roman and Xavier together. Seeing what you built from nothing compared to what I built from everything. I finally understand what I destroyed. I stood. I'd heard enough. Your sons are extraordinary people. I told him. Not because of anything you gave them. Because of everything they became despite your absence. Whether they ever choose to know you is entirely their decision. I won't poison them against you, but I won't advocate for you either. You'll have to earn whatever relationship you want, and you should know. Both of them inherited my ability to recognize when someone's putting on an act. He didn't respond. Just sat there. A man surrounded by everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. This story taught me 3 truths I carry like oxygen now. First. Secrets built on lies don't protect anyone. They just delay the explosion. 27 years of believing my children were dead could have been 27 years of raising them together. Of giving them each other. Sebastian's protection was just cowardice wearing a nicer mask. If you're keeping a secret right now that you've convinced yourself is for someone else's good, ask yourself honestly. Whose comfort are you really protecting? Theirs or yours? Second. What we build from nothing is more precious than what we inherit from plenty. Roman's resilience. His integrity. His profound understanding of what matters. None of that came from wealth or privilege. It came from showing up every single day and choosing to become someone worth being. Xavier had every advantage, and he still felt empty until he found us. Because things can't replace presence. Money can't substitute for love. And the struggles that shape us often create more value than the ease that spoils us. Third. It's never too late to learn who you really are, but you have to be willing to let the old story die. Xavier spent his whole life believing he was abandoned. Roman spent his believing he had no brother. I spent mine believing I'd lost everything that mattered. All of us were wrong. And being wrong, admitting it, rebuilding from there. That's where real life begins. My sons are still figuring out what it means to be brothers. Some days they're strangers making small talk. Other days they're finishing each other's sentences like they've never been apart. The relationship builds slowly, imperfectly, honestly. Which is how all real things are built. Roman started his own security consulting firm. Xavier invested, but more importantly, he refers clients and treats his brother as a professional equal rather than a charity case. They're learning to be partners as well as family. And me? I'm learning to accept that I don't have to earn my place anymore. That showing up imperfect and real is enough. That the love I spent 27 years building one son at a time now expands to include another. Sebastian Mercer took almost everything from me. He stole my confidence. My security. My trust in human goodness. He stole 27 years of watching my sons know each other. But he couldn't steal what mattered most. My ability to love fiercely despite every reason to become bitter. My determination to raise children who understood that character outweighs circumstance. My stubborn, exhausting, relentless hope that someday, somehow, the truth would find its way to light. The truth found us in an ancestry test. A DNA match. A stranger who shared my son's face. And now, finally, we're home. If this story moved you, if you see yourself in Vivienne's struggle or Roman's resilience or Xavier's search for truth, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now. It helps more people find stories that matter. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Because there are more stories like this one. Stories about people who survived impossible odds and found their way back to each other. Comment below and tell me. Have you ever discovered a secret that changed everything you thought you knew about your family? Your story might be the one someone else needs to hear today. And share this video with someone who needs to believe that truth eventually finds its way to light, no matter how long it's been buried. Because sometimes justice takes 27 years. Sometimes the people who hurt us never face consequences. But sometimes the universe delivers exactly the reckoning that's deserved. This was Mr. Dawson's Stories. Thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.